Hello everyone. This is Starry Ari's ASMR. I am Ari, and as you can see, I have my lovely wooden recipe box here in front of me because I would like to write out a few new recipe cards. I have done a few videos like this, and today I picked out 3 recipes that I want to put into cards. So let me show you which ones I chose today. The first one that we have is shrimp tacos. I really love shrimp tacos, and I love shrimp in general. Every time we do our meal planning, I always like to have at least one shrimp meal during the month. And shrimp tacos are just, it's so easy. So I have had this one for a while, and I just haven't ever written it down. So this is the first one that I definitely want to write down. And even though I do have these printed, some of these next two, we would just pull up on our phones every time, and then I finally printed them, and then I typically prefer to just have them in the recipe box because it's just a convenient card. I don't have to like fuss around with the paper, and this usually like gets dirty while we're cooking or something, and then I have to print it again, and it's just a whole thing. So I'd rather have a nice, neat recipe card that can just sit right in the box, and then I don't have to worry about it like getting dirty and messed up. So the next recipe, as you can see here, is Lactaid Alfredo sauce. So my husband is lactose intolerant, and so we try for most of our meals to kind of do substitutes or alternatives as much as possible, or just avoid really dairy heavy meals. However, Alfredo is like one of his favorite pasta sauces, and he was a bit sad and in denial for a while when he kind of had to give it up. But recently, in the last few months, we had decided to just look up if we could do a lower dairy option, and we found this one using Lactaid whole milk, and so that's lactose-free milk. And so this one does still have Parmesan, but Parmesan is a cheese that is quite low in lactose already, and so it's not like as heavy or as bad. So we've messed around with this one a good few times. We've done it with chicken, shrimp, and andouille sausage, all really good. So got the Lactaid Alfredo sauce. And then we also have this pork schnitzel recipe. So this is one that we've also done quite a few times. Usually I'm pretty hands-off on this recipe. Usually my husband just kind of does it, and then I'll do like the veggie or the side or something. But every time we do pork schnitzel, we have to like pull this up, and it's like on our phone, and it's just an annoying thing. So I printed this out so that I could get it on a recipe card. And those are the 3 recipes that we are going to do today. And I don't know exactly how long they're going to take. I think these are all pretty like straightforward and fairly easy recipes. I think the pork schnitzel is the one that's probably going to take me the longest. So I'm going to start with the shrimp tacos. And I'll go ahead and set the other recipes out of the way. And then I can go ahead and grab a few cards out of our box. So this is our box here. These are the cards that we've already filled out. As you can see, I mean, not nearly as many as this box can hold. But I'm going to grab out 3 cards that these little recipe cards. I just think that they're so cute. We actually got this recipe card box as a wedding gift to ourselves. So I'm going to set the box up front, up there, and just grab one of these cards. So as you can see on this side, there is space for the title of the recipe here. And then you can fill out the serving size, the prep time, and the cook time. I feel like half the time I don't really fill that out because it just doesn't really mean much to me. And then here are all these lines for ingredients. And it has these really cute little line drawings of a mixing bowl and a rolling pin, like a wooden mixing spoon and some eggs. It's very cute. And then on the back here it says directions, and here's a mixing spoon, and here are all of the lines for writing out the instructions in the recipe. So I'm going to first fill out this side here, the name and the ingredients. And for this, I'm just going to write shrimp tacos. I know the recipe technically says easy shrimp tacos. I'm just going to put shrimp tacos. Shrimp tacos. And then now I'm going to fill in the ingredients. So the first ingredient that is quite important is 1 pound of medium shrimp. I'm going to write 1 pound medium shrimp. And then we usually just get like frozen, raw, peeled and tail off shrimp. I know that a lot of the time recipes like I guess ideally should cook shrimp with the tail on. I despise eating recipes that are not meant to be hands-on. Like if you're eating like a shrimp cocktail and it has the tail on, that's fine because you're using your hands anyways. But if I'm eating a pasta and the shrimp has the tail on, I do not like it. So we always get the tail off shrimp for like everything that we do with shrimp. So I'm going to do the 1 pound medium shrimp. That was my rant about shrimp. And then it says 1 tablespoon of olive oil. I'm going to write 1 tablespoon olive oil. And then we need 1/2 teaspoon of garlic powder. So I'm going to do 1/2 teaspoon garlic powder. And we need 1/2 teaspoon of onion powder. Do 1/2 teaspoon onion powder. And we have actually made this without the onion powder before because my mom's allergic to onion powder, or onion in general. And so we have left that out. I thought that it still tasted good, but usually when we make it, like just for us and she's not here, then we make it with onion powder. Sorry, Mom. And then we do 1/2 teaspoon of smoked paprika. So I'm going to write 1/2 teaspoon paprika. I'm just going to write paprika, not smoked paprika. And then we need 1/2 teaspoon of cumin. I'm just going to write cumin because we don't ever not have ground cumin. And then 1/2 teaspoon of chili powder. 1/2 teaspoon chili powder. Alright, and then I am going to have on the second side, I'm going to have this be kind of like the main, like actual shrimp ingredients. And then on this side, I'm gonna write kind of our usual like toppings. So I'm gonna also put tortillas because we do need tortillas to make tacos. So I'm gonna write tortillas, and then we usually do sour cream or Greek yogurt, salsa, lettuce. Sometimes we'll do tomatoes. I don't like raw tomatoes, but my husband does, so it kind of is up to him if he wants it. We do the cilantro, and then we usually add rice and avocado. So I'm gonna do tortillas, rice, and then I'm just gonna go down this list. Sour cream, salsa, lettuce, and I think maybe I'll put tomatoes. Yeah, we just so often don't get tomatoes because my husband's usually kind of like fine if we don't do it. And cilantro. Okay, so we have all of our ingredients listed out here. So the next step is to write out the instructions. So the first thing it says is to prep your shrimp. If frozen, run them under cool water until thawed. Peel them and remove the tails. I'm going to write prep and thaw shrimp. I think for some instruction steps, I'm just going to kind of shorten it as I see fit. And then it says, meanwhile, prep your toppings. I'm going to leave that out. And then number 3, which is going to be our number 2, is add shrimp to skillet with the olive oil and spices. Olive oil and spices. Okay, and then it says cook over medium-high heat until the shrimp are pink, flipping / stirring them occasionally. So I'm going to make that the next step. Cook over medium-high heat until the shrimp are pink. And I'm just going to write stirring occasionally. Alright, here we go. And then our next step is going to be, I am going to add in, start cooking the rice if we have not already. So I'm going to write in cook rice and prep toppings. There we go. See, usually I'm honestly typically pretty lazy with the shrimp. We usually get the frozen shrimp and then just thaw it. We take it out in the morning and put it in the fridge. And then by evening, however much it's thawed in the fridge, that's just what we go with. So usually I'll just throw it in. And so it takes a little bit longer to cook. So cook rice and prep the toppings. And then last step is to assemble tacos. I'm going to put an exclamation mark because that's an exciting thing. Alright, so that was pretty quick and easy. Here is our shrimp tacos with the actual shrimp ingredients over here, and then kind of all of the extra stuff that we need for the tacos. And this is the next recipe that I'm going to write out, the Lactaid Alfredo sauce. Alfredo sauce, like that. And then now we can go through the ingredients list. So it says 2 tablespoons of olive oil, 2 tablespoons olive oil, 1 cup of chicken broth, 1 cup chicken broth, and then 2 tablespoons of butter. And we usually just use margarine to make it like more dairy friendly. It is funny that they say butter in here. Is there like a Lactaid brand butter? I don't know. And then 1 cup of Parmesan cheese. Cup Parmesan cheese. And 1 tablespoon of chopped garlic. We usually use like 3 to 4 cloves of garlic, so that's what I'm gonna write. 3 to 4 cloves. Oops, accidentally spelled that weirdly. Cloves of garlic. Because that's part of the danger of writing in pen, is that you can't fix it. And then it says half a teaspoon of salt. Do 1/2 teaspoon salt. 4 tablespoons of flour. 4 tablespoons flour. 1/4 teaspoon of black pepper. 1/4 teaspoon black pepper. Sometimes we've done more pepper because my husband does love black pepper. And then 1 cup of Lactaid, lactose-free whole milk. So I'm going to write 1 cup Lactaid whole milk. Alright, and that is everything over here in the ingredients list. So now I can flip this over and move on to the directions. And the first step in the directions here is to place olive oil and butter in a large saucepan, turn burner to medium-low, and melt the butter. So first step, place olive oil and butter in a large saucepan. Turn burner to medium-low. And melt the butter. Right. And step 2 is to add garlic and simmer for about a minute. So we're going to add garlic and simmer about a minute. Okay. Step 3 is to stir the flour until fully incorporated and cook the roux for a minute. We stir in flour until fully incorporated and cook roux for about a minute. Step 4 is to whisk in Lactaid whole milk and chicken broth and bring to a simmer. So I'm going to just write whisk in milk and chicken broth. And bring to a simmer. Step 5. When the sauce starts to thicken, stir in the Parmesan cheese, salt, and butter. When sauce starts to thicken, stir in Parmesan, salt, and pepper. And step 6, last step, toss the lactose-free Alfredo sauce with pasta and serve. Toss sauce with pasta and serve. There we go. So very straightforward, and I think there are many ways that you can really kind of make this recipe your own, however you want to do that, but this has been really great. My husband's been very happy that we've been able to have Alfredo sauce more frequently. So we've got that one all finished. And the last recipe we have here to write out is the pork schnitzel recipe. I'm going to grab our last card and I'm going to jump right in. I'm going to write out pork schnitzel. And then here are our ingredients. So we need to start with 2 pounds of boneless pork chops, trimmed and sliced into 1/2-inch thick cutlets. Alright, 2 pounds boneless pork chops. And then I'm going to try and remember to write this part in the instructions because I don't like having to go over the line if I don't need to. And then we have we need 1/3 cup of flour. 1/3 cup flour. 1 tablespoon of garlic salt, or sub with equal parts salt and garlic powder. We always have garlic salt, so I'm going to write 1 tablespoon garlic salt. Need 1/2 teaspoon of paprika, so 1/2 teaspoon paprika. 1/2 teaspoon of black pepper. 1/2 teaspoon black pepper. And then 3 large eggs. 3 large eggs. 2 cups of panko breadcrumbs. 2 cups panko breadcrumbs. Olive oil, canola oil, or any high heat cooking oil to saute. I'm just going to write cooking oil. Lemon wedges to serve. Don't skip the lemons. So I'm going to say lemon juice because usually we have lemon juice in the fridge. And then that is everything I need to write out for ingredients. Here are the instructions. Each step kind of looks quite long, so I think I'm going to probably have to break them up into multiple steps. So the first step I'm going to write is to trim and slice pork chops into 1/2-inch thick cutlets. I'm going to start on this top line because I don't know exactly how many of the lines I'm going to need. So I'm going to just write trim, pork chops into 1/2 inch thick cutlets. And then the official next step, line a cutting board with plastic wrap, place cutlets in a single layer on cutting board, and cover with plastic wrap. This prevents splatter. Okay, so line cutting board with plastic wrap. Place cutlets and cover with plastic wrap. There we go. And it says pound cutlets with a meat mallet or the back of a heavy saucepan until 1/4 inch to 1/8 of an inch thick. So I'm going to write pound cutlets until 1/4 inch to 1/8 inch thick. There we go. Alright, so that's that first step completely done. Step 2 is to set up 3 bowls. In the first, combine 1/3 cup of flour, 1 tablespoon of garlic salt, 1/2 teaspoon paprika, 1/2 teaspoon of pepper. So I'm going to condense that a little bit and just say maybe I'm going to say mix flour, salt, paprika, and pepper in a bowl. And then next, in a separate bowl, beat 3 eggs with a fork. I guess I didn't need to say the amount of eggs. And then step number 5, in 3rd bowl, add panko crumbs. Alright, moving on to step number 3 in the actual recipe. It says dredge both sides of each pounded cutlet in flour, then dip in beaten egg, letting excess egg drip back into the bowl before breading in panko crumbs. Let's do, I'm going to say dip both sides of each cutlet in flour, then egg, then bread crumbs. Okay, and then that's all I'm gonna write for this step because it says it helps to use a fork for the dipping process to keep your hands clean. My husband just kind of goes for it. And then repeat with remaining cutlets. I don't think I really need to write that out. So on to the last step in the actual recipe here. It says once all cutlets are breaded, heat a large nonstick pan over medium heat large nonstick pan over medium heat. Large pan over medium heat with enough oil to cover bottom of the pan. Bottom of pan. Next, it says once oil is hot, add breaded cutlets a few at a time and saute 3 to 4 minutes per side or until cooked through. Okay, so next step, I'm just going to write saute cutlets 3 to 4 minutes per side. Or until cooked throughout. I think I'm going to write that. And then remove 2 paper towel lined plate. I like this. So it says cut into 1 to check doneness. Juices should run clear. Serve with lemon wedges or ranch for children. Sometimes we've eaten ours with ranch, but we are not children. But I've always found that kind of funny. So I think that kind of covers the basics of this. Honestly, my husband kind of has this whole process down. It's mostly nice to have a card for the ingredients list to remember kind of exactly how much of each thing we need. But that one is also now completed. So we now have all 3 of our recipe cards filled out and ready to be put in the box. So let me open this up. And let's start with the pork schnitzel. I have most of this alphabetized, although some of it not. It kind of depends on what I was feeling, or sometimes I put like words in front of what the actual thing is and it doesn't really make sense. But for the pork schnitzel, this is going to go in front of our roasted Brussels sprouts. So it's going to go there. And then the Lactaid Alfredo sauce is going to go behind fried rice. Like that. And then shrimp tacos last. It's going to go before stuffed mushrooms, but after the roasted Brussels sprouts. Here we go. So now we have all of those nice and neatly organized. And it always feels nice to have a few recipes added to our little recipe box. I hope that you enjoyed this video and spending some time with me as I wrote out some new recipe cards. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope that you have a wonderful rest of your day.